My name is Brianna, and I am going to walk you through what the lesson would look like for the book that I chose. My group, we chose to do an author study on Matt de la Pena, and we chose him because he has a lot of books, whether they're for elementary, but he also has young adult novels, and he talks a lot about, representation with kids and making sure that, students are able to see themselves in the stories that they're reading. So that was one of the main reasons why we chose him as our multicultural author. So I chose to do the mini lesson on Last Stop on Market Street. So this story is about a boy named CJ, and his grandma. They always take the bus after they go to church. And CJ, he's thinking, why do we have to take the bus? Like, all my friends have a car. And Nana's trying to show him the beauty and everything. She's saying, and they're waiting for the bus in the rain. And he's saying, why do we have to wait in the rain? And CJ's telling them, or grandma's telling them that, trees need rain too. So she's trying to, he's getting upset, and she's trying to change his point of view. Um, they end up getting on the bus, and CJ's not very happy about being on the bus and going to where they're going, and they're actually going to the soup kitchen to volunteer. Um, and there's another man that comes on the bus, and he has an iPod, and CJ's like, why don't I have an iPod? And then across from them is a man with a guitar. So Nana again is trying to help him find the beauty. And, you don't need these valuable things when we have, we need to appreciate what we already have. In addition to that, when they get off the bus at the last stop on Market Street, they end up in the soup where they're going is the soup kitchen. And CJ's saying, Nana, this place is dirty. And she's telling him, sometimes you can find beauty in the places that you don't expect it. And then CJ ends up finding that beauty that Nana wants him to find and appreciate where they are going, because he sees, the differences among a people, and he sees people that he's even familiar with at the soup kitchen. So that makes him happy to go where they're going, and he ends up appreciating what they are doing. So in this lesson plan, the story is going to support the objectives, which I'm going to go over in the next slide. So the students are going to have to track the characters in the story. So this is a later kindergarten skill for them to be able to track these characters. And they're going to be doing this by finding the major events and details in the story and how they relate to the character. So they're going to be talking about the character and the actions and comparing and thinking about how that character is feeling at the end of the story versus how the character was feeling in the beginning of the story. We're going to have whole group discussions. They're going to have time to work in partners and turn in talks as we're reading. I'm going to, we'll have guiding questions that we're going to discuss. They can raise their hand. We're going to have turn talks, and we'll talk about it as a whole group. And we're going to be thinking about the question, is the character the same, or did the character change? And how does that character feel? So the story allows the students to pick out the key details in the characters through major events in the stories and the feelings that they are having. So interdisciplinary connections. So the book connects to social studies, reading, and writing. Students are thinking about the world around them as individuals and communities and a family, and that's a social studies standard. Reading is connected through finding the characters' change in perspectives and feelings, and students are connecting to writing by answering an exit ticket with drawing. So the lesson plan description is going to walk you through this a little bit. So the objectives are students will be able to discuss how the character changes by examining major events in the text. And students will be able to write and draw how the character feels at the end of the story. So the standards, I'm going to give you a second to look over those. They're identifying characters, major events, ask and answer questions. And then I even added in that speaking and listening standard about having collaborative conversations, because that is a big topic for kindergartners, especially with turn and talks. Materials are going to be the book, Last Stop on Market Street, a pencil, a feelings chart, and then the exit ticket, which is also pictured there. So before reading, the teacher's going to introduce the story and have students volunteer, and they're even going to be making a prediction. This is something that they've already done. They're going to be making predictions on what they think the last stop on Market Street will be. And the teacher's going to explain to them that sometimes a character can change from the beginning to the end. And she's gonna, we're gonna talk about how sometimes we even change. We come into kindergarten, maybe we don't know how to move to for the seat of the carpet, or we don't know how to hold our pencil right. And as the year goes on, or as the story goes on, we change. So just like we can change, and maybe we can change our minds and our perspectives on something, or we can just change us as a person, our characters that we read about can also change as well. So the teacher's going to, explain to them that we're going to be thinking and looking at our character CJ to think about if he changed from the beginning to the end of the story by thinking about how he feels and pointing out major events in the story. During reading, the teacher's going to be reading the story with the students, and she's going to stop and ask questions, giving them an opportunity to, evaluate thumbs up, thumbs down, having turn talks. They can raise their hands. Students will have access to a feeling chart to help them answer some of these questions. And she's going to be jumping around, as they're having turn talks, so that she can evaluate where the students are at. So some questions that the teacher's going to be asking is, how does CJ feel about not having a car or an iPad? Does he want to go where they're going? How does he describe their destination? So this is just kind of questions where key events and details are happening in the story, where the teacher's going to ask questions just so that she can get the students thinking about those key major events. After reading, the teacher's going to present the students with the question, how did CJ feel in the beginning? And then she's going to do a think aloud. So this is going to be where she's going to model what they are going to be doing for CJ at the end of the story. So she's going to think, I know CJ kept asking Grandma why they have to go somewhere. He seemed kind of annoyed. He was waiting for the bus and he was complaining that it was raining and he didn't have an iPod, but Grandma kept trying to cheer him up. I think CJ was annoyed in the beginning because of his actions. He was grumpy. He was annoyed. And then the teacher's going to tell the students to share how they think CJ felt and why. This will give them a chance to practice this with their turn and talk partner. And she's going to jump around and listen to them as they are discussing. And then the teacher's going to complete the exit ticket before the beginning of the story. So she's even going to model what they're going to do with their exit ticket. For their independent work, she's going to tell the students that when they go back to their seats, they're going to complete the same exit ticket that she just completed. But instead of thinking about the beginning of the story, the students are going to be thinking about the end of the story. And when we're going to make sure we want to check for understanding, we're going to emphasize that we're thinking about how CJ felt at the end of the story. And then they're going to draw how that character felt. So is he going to have a happy face, a sad face, a mad face? And then they're going to be able to use their feelings chart for that as well. And then we're going to encourage them to use invented spelling or to write a sentence about describing his perspective and circling that word about how he's feeling. Students with disabilities will have the opportunity to use drawings and dictations with the teacher to describe their work. And then once they finish that exit ticket, they're going to come back as a group for the closing about 5 minutes, and the teacher is going to close the lesson by having a whole group discussion on how CJ felt at the end. So she's going to recap about how CJ felt in the beginning, and students are going to share about how they felt at the end, how they thought he felt at the end. Then we're going to talk a little bit about whether that's the same or different. Did CJ's perspective change? And students are going to get a chance to talk about that as well, whole group. And we're going to talk about, how his perspective changed from the beginning, how he started appreciating what he had because, he saw his familiar faces when he got to the food bank. And then we're going to do that as a whole group. So the effectiveness of this lesson, the students are going to show mastery by discussing how CJ felt and how he was feeling throughout the story. And if it changed in the closing, we're going to talk about that. They're going to show mastery by being able to draw or write about how he's feeling and completing their exit ticket as well. So overall, the students are going to be going through, a mini lesson of reading the story, answering questions, and the overall takeaway from the story is, seeing how the character changed and the perspective changed throughout the story. And they're going to be completing that exit ticket for me to look over, and also, observations and through the turn and talks and evaluations in that way as well. Thanks.